Konnichiwa, minasan. Hello. I'm so glad that you're here, wherever you are in the world. Today is Thursday, and we're going to be speaking about Minami Ito. She is a wonderful example of Ganbaru, how never to give up. And I hope this inspires you. So without further ado, we will start the slideshow now. So the first slide, actually, it's a short recording. So please watch this for about 2-3 minutes. Mount St. Helens erupted, devastating Southwest Washington in May of 1980. My parents recently purchased a defunct plant nursery on the I-5 frontage road. And standing in a pile of ashes, Mother decided to start her nursery anyway. After nearly a year of preparing, it was opening day. One day during the first week, the only sale for the day was one lonely geranium. There's a Japanese proverb that says, fall 7 times, stand up 8. I believe that if you're going to be one of the 8% of the people who actually succeed at your most important goals, you're going to need to have something that goes far beyond what most people have. It's not uncommon to struggle when times are challenging and to feel like giving up on your business, relationships, or current situation. And when things that we can't control come up, like an economic downturn, political changes, it can seem even harder. Regardless of what is happening, you can be resilient, make something out of nothing. During the Great Depression, the most millionaires in U.S. history were made. From my mother, I learned that anything is possible and to never give up. The Japanese have a philosophy, Ganbaru, which is translated as try your hardest, do your best, never give up, and go for broke. And Mother is right. 40 years later, the Sagawa Nursery is thriving. The business employs 40 people in the Pacific Northwest, and loyal customers come from near and far to purchase specialty garden items. Literally, Sagawa Nursery rose from the ashes. Studying my heritage further, I discovered that the samurai warrior never gave up, even if it meant total defeat or death. There are 3 things that you can do right away to become more invincible and tap into your inner samurai. 1, remember that when you have a goal, there's always someone who has a complementary goal to help you. 2, by standing firm and persevering and knowing your why, you will access strength you didn't even know that you had. 3, go for what you want, like your life depends on it. When you do that, you too can accomplish anything. If you're committed to live your life with purpose and want the strength, courage, and honor to see it through in a way that benefits all, let's talk. Schedule a time for a strategy session. We'll look to see what you'd like to accomplish and if and how I can help you get there. Bring the energy of the samurai into your life, and you too will become invincible. Believe it or not, I am a farmer's daughter. Some of you may have seen this, but it's actually a very important part of my life. And the plate that you see is a porcelain plate from Japan. Our friend who was a merchant marine would bring us back something every time he came back from a trip. And this time he took our family photo and they took it to a studio and they made plates out of our pictures. Came with 2 matches. Can you imagine having a personalized match with your picture on it? So growing up, I did not like it. I did not like being wet. I didn't like really working hard and getting in the dirt and just not liking it, eating your lunch, whether it was hot or cold, and having to use plywood outhouses. It was
was not my life, but it did teach me how to work hard, and I'm very, very thankful for it. And I'm working alongside my mom and dad, who also taught us how never give up. It didn't matter if it was raining outside. We went out and we picked the berries or whatever needed to be done. They said, well, if they're not picked, could mean that you could rot the whole row. So we learned very young that food translates into work, not the grocery store. So I grew up and my parents wanted us to thrive and be good citizens, because they said people after World War II, people were watching us, and they said you have to make a good impression, you have to be a good citizen as well as a good student. So I did that. I worked very hard on grades, and I was a high achiever. Went through high school, cheerleader, on to college. And when I was in college, I had to take 2 years of a foreign language. And now this will date me. This is many years ago. So I decided to take Japanese because I wanted to know, what were my parents saying behind my back? They would be talking and we'd try to understand what they were talking about, but we didn't understand much. So I started understanding a little bit more about the language. And previously I'd learned about okane means money, baka means there's something missing up there, and takai means too expensive. So I did learn a little bit, but I learned a lot more, and it was the start of my journey to realize and understand more about my Japanese heritage. And then when I finished college, my mentor told me, she was an international designer whose name was Sarah Little. And she said, Lori, you are so Japanese, much more than you realize. And I thought about that. And she goes, I think you should go to Japan. And so as a young bride, and finishing college, my husband and I went to Japan, and I absolutely loved it because there were so many people that had the same hair color as me, kind of the same mannerism, but they spoke a different language. So I love Japan. We met our Japanese relatives, who was actually my father's cousin, and when we were in Japan, and that was amazing. So next slide. They taught us, well, actually they gave us a copy of our family crest, and it's called a kamon. There are 3 stylized swords and 3 leaves, which look like hearts. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Thank you very much. And they gave us a copy of our family tree, but I did not understand, nor did I appreciate what they gave us. And so next slide, we went to the Jidai Matsuri, and I saw a woman, and she was on a horse, and she looked so strong and regal. She had a naginata, which was different than the samurai sword. That's what the women carried, longer, and that's what they went to battle with. And Tomoe Gozen was she was formidable. They say that she could take down hundreds of men in one battle, and she would come out unscathed. So I never knew there were female samurai, so that just put another plant in me about my Japanese heritage. And so later on, starting a family, raised 2 young boys, and who are now adults, and I just became an empty nester. But in then 05 and 07, I was rear-ended twice, not once, but twice, and I was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, TBI, reading at a 7th grade level. And I was determined to find answers for my solution. So what I did was I researched my Japanese background and found out a lot about my heritage, and come to like it much more, understand it much more. And I felt that I would find answers in my heritage, and that I did. The samurai, what I learned was that the samurai were more than warriors. They live by a code of ethics known as Bushido. Bushi is warrior and Do is the way. So it's the way of the warrior. And that includes courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. And they were so dedicated to that code of Bushido that they pledged their sacred honor and their lives. That meant that if they happened to disobey or dishonor, it would be seppuku, which is the honorable death. So that's that. Although in this day and age, that is the ultimate sacrifice is not required, but in some ways, our soldiers and soldiers across the world are pledging their lives, their sacred honor to defend their country and their families. So I think that's the next. So I wrote and continued to research. And as I did, everything improved. I was so messed up at that time. I couldn't read, I couldn't barely function. And I decided to write a book, and it came. And in 2015, I self-published it. 2016, and went on Amazon. 2018, Tuttle Publishing offered a contract for a new edition of my book, which I took. And now the book is more international. It is in German and Arabic. And that's the Arabic version is now just out on Amazon. So I'm very excited about that. And so if you speak German or Arabic, or you know people that do, it is also offered in those languages. And I've contacted Tuttle and asked, it should be written in Japanese, don't you think? And so they're going to look into that. Very happy that the book has, I had no idea that the book would take off like this. I'm very happy and thankful that it has, because I just did it as a goal to overcome traumatic brain injury, because that was quite something. Went to hundreds, if not thousands, of appointments, physical therapy, chiropractor, massage therapy, physiatrist, neurologist, neuropsych. It was amazing that all the things that I went through, but I was determined not to be in that situation. So if you have a goal that you think is insurmountable, think again. It is not. And the person I'm going to tell you about, Minami, is even more impressive than, and more higher goals and higher things to overcome. And one of them is the loss of one of her limbs. So you'll hear about that very shortly. So this book is out, and we're going to be talking about Ganbaru. Ganbaru is to try your hardest, do your best, never give up, and go for broke. You never give up. And that's what Ganbaru is. And it's more than never giving up. It's about finishing until the end. Because had I quit, I wouldn't be here with you today, nor would I have written the book. So the next slide. And there is a meaning behind Ganbaru. The kanji means stubborn or persistent, while baru means to stretch out or extend. Together, they form that idea of stretching one's limit and pushing forward with unwavering determination. And that's what I did when I was overcoming traumatic brain injury. No one knew whether or not I would succeed at that time, because the brain is kind of a new frontier, and they're learning more about the brain all the time, that the brain actually, there's a plasticity, and the neurons can find new pathways to make the brain work better. So I'm very happy and thankful that more research is being done on it, and that people are discovering more. So the next slide. How many of you remember May 1980? Well, that's when Mount St. Helens blew, and the ashes traveled across the state, and not too many lives were gone, but trees and animals and wildlife and bridges and roads were affected. And I can remember what I was doing. My sister and I were making our way from the Oregon coast back to our homes near Seattle and Tacoma. So that's what we were doing. But my parents my mom especially was the eternal optimist. She just was she's so optimistic all the time. And they had just purchased a piece of property, because my father was a farmer, but his brother encouraged him to invest in real estate. And so he did. And they found a defunct nursery right off I-5 in Woodland. And at that time, Woodland was pretty small, but now it has everything. It has Dairy Queen and Starbucks and Safeway, McDonald's. It's quite large now because it's right off the freeway, pretty close to Portland. And so they said, my dad says, well, who are we going to get to run this? And my mom says, I'm going to run it. And my dad says, well, why would you run it? She goes, I'm going to run it. And she had an empty nest at that time, and she put her heart and soul into it, worked tirelessly day in and day out, scouring the area around to find the best plants for her nursery. And when that first week, when her nursery opened, she thought all she had to do was just look pretty and go down there and sell plants. Well, one day, the only thing that she sold was one lonely geranium, just one, not two. And she felt like quitting, but she says, no, I can't. I've taught my kids how you never give up and that Sagawas don't quit. My father would always tell me that. So that's what that was really, shall we say, pounded into me. Sagawas don't quit. And so I couldn't quit. I couldn't quit with the traumatic brain injury journey, and my mom could not quit with her nursery journey. So if we could have the next slide. And now you can still see Sagawa Nursery if you're on the freeway and you're going from Portland to Seattle. It is on the east side. And that is a new greenhouse that my mom built. And every year she would do something to improve the nursery. One year she bought the parking lot, a large, like 5 acres across the street, because there were so many cars there that the police were getting upset with her. They said, you can't do this. And so she bought the parking lot. And then she bought the property next door, which had a swimming pool. And she goes, oh, perfect for a koi pond. And it is still a koi pond. She also improved the buildings. The lath house was pretty sad, shall we say. And she just kept improving every year. I admire her. She's my hero. So if you ever feel like giving up, just think of my mom, how she just worked tirelessly. She only had like 1 or 2 employees the first year, and she was down there all the time. And in the summer, she'd give people popsicles and had coffee for them. But she's amazing. So we'll have the next slide. This is Minami Ito, and she's the one that I have been telling you about. I came across her I think, on the internet, but she was born, she's about 40 now, probably 80, yeah, about 40 years old now. And she grew up and wanted to be a nurse, and she loved swimming. And she was on that path. And also she was playing the violin. So she had quite an active life. But in 2004, she was in a car accident that changed her life. And so that was when she was very young. She was probably in college at that time. She lost her right arm. So that's being a musician, and especially a violinist, your arms and your fingers are very important. I would say probably your left arm is more important than the right arm, because your right arm does the bow. And so they figured out how to make a prosthetic for her. And they actually have to strap it to her other shoulder so that she would be able to do it. And they made it so conscientious or precise that it actually helps her play the bow better. So you can see in the picture how she is, how do you say that? How she has a guide, and they do that sometimes when the kids are first starting to learn how to play the violin. They have different guides and things like that. So they did that for her. And she didn't want to go after she lost her arm for a year. Sounds like she was depressed. She did not want to leave the house because she did not like the way she looked. But her mother encouraged her to play, so she did. And when she saw other people with amputees that had different parts of their bodies, whether it be leg or arms, she became encouraged and decided to continue with violin. And her mom was so happy. And when she plays, you'll see in the next video, she plays and it brings people to tears. It brings me to tears when I see the struggles that she has had to go through, but she never quit. So with that, I would like to have you watch the video of Minami Ito from Japan.
Welcome back to the world's best. So who's next to face the wall of the world? Let's take a trip to Japan to find out.
は7歳から始めました。バイオリンはとっても大好きでしたが、20歳の時に大きなトラックとぶつかって事故に遭いました。今まで大好きだったバイオリンを諦めるしかありませんでした。夢も希望も失って、学校も1年間休学して家に引きこもりました。すごく気になってたのが、母がいつかお母さんのためにバイオリン弾いてねっていうその一言を思い出しまして、たくさんの人たちに聴いてほしいです。すごくワクワクドキドキしています。勇気をもらっていただけたらなと。
I thought that was fabulous. And you see her little girl that was there, and imagine the impact that she has on not just people aspiring to be violinists, but just people in all walks of life, that we come to have a pity party. We can think about other people and the struggles that they have had to overcome in order to reach their goal. And so there's some key attributes of Ganbaru I'd like you to think about. Resilience, the ability to recover and keep going after failure or hardship. Just because it's hard or you fail, like Thomas Edison, if you fail, try again. And he said, I never failed. Thomas Edison also said, I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways to make a light bulb. Next is discipline, maintaining focus and effort regardless of distractions or temptation. And this comes to knowing your why. All of it does, really. Why are you doing what you're doing? And that will, I believe that will be an overarching theme of your goal. What is your why? And like Sugihara, I spoke about earlier, he knew his why. Dedication, committing fully to a goal, no matter the sacrifices. And some people don't become rich from reaching their goal. Like I believe it was not Monet, an artist, wasn't Picasso, we know that. But anyway, he only sold one painting during his life. And so some people don't receive the notoriety that they deserve, but they die knowing that they did the right thing and they gave it their all. That was dedication. And endurance, continuing through discomfort, fatigue, or long durations of difficulty. Sometimes things don't always happen like a microwave. You put the bag of popcorn in and 2 or 3 minutes later you have some popcorn. Sometimes it doesn't end that way, but you have to keep going and surround yourself with positive people, not the naysayers, because positive people will probably have a goal as well. So it's good to have a mastermind. And I'm going to be starting a mastermind, and that'll be in October. And it's about the samurai, the mindset of the samurai with Ikigai, Ganbaru, and Kodobushiro. So we will continue to the next slide. How can you see how you could put Ganbaru or apply Ganbaru to your life? You set the goals. Embrace discomfort. Sometimes it's not always comfortable. And resist the urge to quit, because it's easy to quit. It's very easy to quit. And you can say, oh, well, I just quit. I'm through. Don't quit. So the samurai, well, it's a Japanese proverb, is fall 7 times and stand up 8. This was taken at the Samurai Ninja Museum in Kyoto. And this is where you can actually don samurai apparel. And what the garb for your body is very light, which is good, but the helmet is really heavy. It's like 10, 15 pounds. It's very heavy, but it's really fun. You could wear black or red, and of course I chose black. And it's interesting to learn about the samurai and their lives and what they went through. So that's, and when I take people to Japan and we're in Kyoto, we get to see this museum, which they have amazing not replicas, actual samurai outfits that is on display, of course, behind glass. Some of them are in the rooms, but most of them are behind glass. So I hope you enjoyed this. We'll go to the next slide. I love learning about it. And we're also going to learn just a little bit from Steve Jobs, who loved Japan.
My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the 2 of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle.
Actually, that's a 3-part series, and I had Nell, my assistant, divide them to go with Ganbaru, Ikigai, and Kotobushido. And now I get to tell you about the exciting part. It's the Samurai Mastermind, and it's in 3 parts. It's going to start in October. And the first part is Ikigai. What is your purpose? What is your purpose in life? And it's actually, what do you love? What makes you excited to get up in the morning? What is, you could work forever and lose track of time. So that is Ikigai. Do what you love, do what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. So that's important. That's the first part we'll discover and study. It's going to be 7 weeks, and you will get an ebook about Ikigai, and you will also receive a workbook for Ikigai so that you can work on your Ikigai. And the next part is the Kotobushido, and that's about my book, Let the Samurai Be Your Guide. And that is of 7 parts, as I mentioned: courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. And those principles shape the nation of Japan, and their effects can still be felt today. When you have the privilege to visit Japan, you'll feel safe. You won't see trash on the street. You don't see people making messes, and people take care of their garbage. They literally have to take care of their own garbage. And you will see people being kind and considerate and honest. You don't tip in Japan because they consider that part of their service and part of their Ikigai. That's the Kotobushido. And so the last one is Ganbaru. We've given you good tools, but now I want to give you something so that you won't give up on your why. That's so important. And also during that time, we're going to be also working on your legacy, because you're going to have all kinds of plans. You can do wonderful things, but for what? You want, like Tomohiko Zen, born in 1157, died in 1247. She was known for something, and she's still being talked about today. So many examples that I've shared with you, those lives of people are still being talked about. They're being read about and studied. So if we can go to the next slide. So the Samurai Mastermind is going to be amazing because it is instructional, but it's also like a mastermind. It's you putting your life and your works together. So there'll be 7 weekly meetings. Begins next month. Can you believe it's going to be October? And you will receive 3 additional coaching sessions, personal ones. You will get ebooks and the actual book for each one of the topics: Ikigai, Kotobushido, and Ganbaru. You'll be giving workbooks on that. And so while we're doing that, I would like you to consider your legacy. And maybe you've not thought of that. Well, it's never too late. The Colonel was using his Social Security check to start his business, and now his business is worldwide, and it continues. And also, you'll be first in line for my Japan 2025 trip, and that we're working on it right now, and it's going to be during cherry blossom season. So that'll be wonderful. I like going in the spring, but I also like going in the fall. You'll be learning about Japan from a Japanese. As far as I know, I'm 100% Japanese, but you know how it goes in the bloodline. And I have a love and a passion. And actually, I have a Japanese heart. I really believe, even though I'm American, I have the heart of Japan, and people in Japan mention that to me. I have conversations, and I can only go so far, and I'm working on, in fact, I have a lesson today working on my Japanese so I can have conversations with deeper meanings. So this is going to be a beta test. I'm sorry, a beta pilot test. So it's limited to 10 people. And the price actually is going to go down from that because this is a beta test. I would like great testimonials because I know that I'll give you value. I believe that this will change your life because it changed my life. It changed me from going from a traumatic brain injury person, not being able to read very well and getting lost, and my head was a mess. I mean, I couldn't think straight. But by studying these codes of Bushido, the Ikigai, and Ganbaru, this gave me a roadmap, and I would love to share it with you. So please DM me, and we will set up a time. I call them virtual teas because they like coffee in Japan, but tea is more, you think of Japan as tea. So, and then you'll see the pictures on to the right. I'm sorry. That is from our tour. And the one up on top is from a village called Miyama. And Miyama is a traditional thatch roof village about an hour and a half from Kyoto. And we did it with our tour group. And so we were taken in a bus, and it was wonderful. We got to see it. And then we also got to see a rice planting event in Miyama that only happens one time a year. So we happened to be able to witness that. That was wonderful. But the thatch roofs are just beautiful. They say they do it about every 20 years, and the whole village comes together to help raise the roof. And probably the government would help because it's about $200,000 to change a roof. That happens every 20 years. And the other one is at the Ninja Museum, and the one on the bottom is me in front of King Kakuji. King is gold, and you can't take a bad picture there. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. So we'll go to the next slide. So my encouragement to you is to never, never, never give up. There's always a prize at the end of it. And I believe that, whatever your goal or your passion, whatever it is, that it is attainable. And if it's on your heart, there's a reason that it is. You wouldn't be putting it on your heart if it wasn't attainable. Like, it's not on my heart to be like Elon Musk. Technology is just not where I'm at, but it is out on my heart to talk about Japan and the culture and the solutions that are in that culture. It's a very rich culture, which I'm continuing to learn about. And I hope you want to learn about it with me. And so please DM me, and we could set up a time to have a discussion. And that is it for now. I'll say mata ne, owari. So that's my contact information. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and I have a Calendly link there. Or you can just DM me or email me, Lori@loriwhaley.com. So that's it for tonight. And thank you so much for joining us, whether you're live or you're watching this afterwards. It's still the same. And thank you very much. And I'll say mata ne.